this is why we're here today, because this energy, this commitment, this passion, this love of our country and our willingness to fight for it. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. The people in this room worked so hard in this election, staffing the polls, answering people's calls, answering voter protection calls, driving people to the vote. And among the captains of the team, my husband, the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, our phenomenal First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and our one and only President, Joe Biden. You did it, Joe. Couldn't help myself. So, as we gather here, votes are still being counted, but it is clear your work sent a message to the entire world. Our democracy is intact. Yeah. And when democracy is intact, this is what it looks like. And here's the thing, some Democrats won and some Republicans won. That is what happens when more than 100 million Americans participate and vote in free and fair and open elections. That's what happens. And that included young people, seniors, parents with children in tow, working people, who all made their voices heard. And the people in this room and around our country made that possible by standing up for basic American values: freedom, liberty, and the rule of law. And I believe when you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. This year, like so many of you, I traveled across our country. We convened students and faith leaders, organizing and advocating to protect the sacred right to vote. We convened candidates and elected officials defending the right to retire with dignity, by defending Social Security and Medicare. And of course, everywhere I went, we brought together people fighting for reproductive freedom, people everywhere, from every background. Because here's the thing, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. Voters across our country knew what they stood for, so they knew what to fight for. They protected and they protected and they protected reproductive rights in Vermont, in Michigan, in California, and in Kentucky. So to everyone who made that possible, thank you. Thank you for working the long hours and the late nights, for protecting voting rights on behalf of every American in every community, in every political party. And to the millions of Americans who waited in line, who mailed in your ballot, who rejected big lies and extremism and participated in our democracy, thank you. You knew what you stood for, so you knew what to fight for. You fought for rights and freedoms that will make our country more fair, more safe, and stronger. And you were not fighting alone. From day one, our president has fought on behalf of all Americans and our democracy. Joe Biden understands the dual nature of democracy, its fragility and its strength. He's been talking about it since day one. The strengths of democracy that lie in principles about treating people equally and electing people fairly, to lift up instead of to beat folks down. And this president understands democracy is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. And no one fights harder for our democracy than the people in this room and this president. He knows what we saw again this week. When we fight, we win. My fellow Americans, it is my great honor to introduce the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Kamala and Doug, by the way, Doug crisscrossed the country. I think he did. He spent more time making sure that the folks who actually count the votes in these states do it honestly. And thank you, pal. And folks, on behalf of Jill and myself, we're here for a simple reason, to say thank you from the bottom of our heart. Not a joke. We mean this. This is not a political piece. This is to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Most of all, thank you for believing in your country. Thank you. No, I really mean it. Thank you for fighting like the devil to make sure that we had a free and a fair election. And, you know, all those election deniers, so far, best of my knowledge, none of them has not said, when they lost, they said, we lost. That's a big deal. No, I really mean it. You know, Tuesday was a good day for America, a good day for democracy, and it was a strong night for Democrats. For months and months, all of you heard from the press and the pundits was that Democrats are facing a disaster. Remember that? And all those polls, God love them. You know, historic losses were on the way, a giant red wave. Folks, that didn't happen. You know, we were talking backstage here before we came out. Each of us crisscrossing the country, all four of us. And we're saying we'd come back and say, I don't know what they're talking about. No, I'm serious. The overwhelming response we were getting. And the fact that even those folks who may not like me or may not like somebody, but they agree with our agenda. They thought what we were doing, you know. By the way, all the Democrats ran on the same agenda without being told, look, while votes are being counted, we don't know the outcome of all the races. Here's what we do know. We lost fewer seats in the House of Representatives than any Democratic president's first elected midterm. At least 40 years. We had the best midterms for governors since 1986. And experts said we couldn't beat the odds, but we did beat the odds. And we did it for one reason. This is not hyperbole, because of you and all of you up on the balcony. It's hard to see up in the balcony, but God love you. I really mean it. Because of you. You believed in the system. You believed in the institutions. You fought like hell for it. And that's the most important thing that happened, in my view, in this election. It was the first national election since January 6th, and there were a lot of concerns about whether democracy would meet the test. It did. It did. It did. And I want to compliment all those mainstream Republicans. I mean, if they get in, they fought like we usually fight, and we got a result, and we accepted it. Everybody accepted it. So for many of you, you organized. You got the vote out. You volunteered at the polls. Think of all we heard before this election about all the people being intimidated, all the people being threatened at the polls, all the people who worked the polls. despite the threats and abuses of too many poll workers on election day and election officials have experienced of late, you did your job. You fulfilled your duty. You showed up. You did what you're supposed to do. And so did the American people. Look, the American people overwhelmingly support our agenda. Lowering prescription drug costs, making health care more affordable, rebuilding America, revitalizing American manufacturing, taking on climate crisis, and finally making big corporations pay their fair share. Preserving democracy and protecting fundamental rights. This is the progress and the programs that we ran on. This is the vote that showed just some real enthusiasm for what we're fighting for. And guess what? It matters. You know, when we came to office, we inherited a nation and a pandemic raging and an economy that was reeling. But we went to work, all of you. And by the way, I know a lot of you just didn't show up on Election Day. You've been working the last 20 or so months for us. But you went to work, building an economy from the bottom up and the middle out. And so, you know, the MAGA Republican trickle-down economic policy we decided didn't work for Americans. Our economic policies created 10 million new jobs. Unemployment went from 6.4% down to 3.7%, one of the lowest in 50 years. American manufacturing is surging with 700 new manufacturing jobs created and many more to come. And look, as I said all during the campaign, where in the hell is it written that America can't lead the world in manufacturing? We are, and we will, and we're going to continue to. Folks, look, just today we learned inflation came down last month. And mainstream economists are saying this is a really positive sign of the resilience of the economic recovery. It's going to take time to get inflation back to normal levels. We can see setbacks along the way. I realize that. But we are laser focused on it. That's why it's so critical for us to pass important legislation this year to lower those costs for families. And I know it's going to take time to implement our entire economic agenda, which we already passed, and for folks to feel it in their day-to-day lives. But I think folks are going to see it in the next few months. That's what's going to, and I think that's what they voted for. Watch what happens when people see new roads, bridges being built in their towns. They start to see the investments being made in electric rail all across America, where it's going to take significant number of vehicles off the road, reducing pollution. Watch what happens when there's affordable high-speed internet in every home in America. Watch what happens when they realize we meant what we said and the lead pipes start being pulled out of schools, daycare centers, homes, all across America. Watch what happens in January when seniors with diabetes on Medicare only have to pay $35 a month instead of $400 a month for their insulin. Watch what happens when big corporations in America start to pay their fair share. And by the way, a 15% tax, isn't that terrible? You all pay more than that. Look, but in 2020, the 55 of the largest corporations in America paid zero on $40 million in profits. Those days are over. And watch what happens when new factories are being built in communities with American workers making the most advanced computer chips in the world. And by the way, that's going to create thousands of good-paying jobs. And I mean jobs between $120,000 and $135,000 a year, and you don't need a college degree to do them. Look, you all made this possible, and we're just getting started. We're just getting started. We saw extraordinary results in these midterm elections that no one thought possible. More independents voted for Democrats and Republicans in this election. Young people, you voted at historic numbers again, just as you did 2 years ago. Young people voted to continue addressing the climate crisis, gun violence, personal rights and freedoms, student debt relief, all those things which you stepped up to do. As I said, women in America made their voices heard, man. I said last year that one of the most extraordinary things about the Dobbs decision is what was about to challenge American women when the justice said, let's see, they have it in their power, basically saying, let's see what they're going to do. Well, guess what? Y'all showed up and beat the hell out of them. Look, I said it then. Those who support ripping away the rights to choose don't have a clue about the power of women in America, but now I think they do. And by the way, no one worked harder to get that message across America than this lady right here. And look, I also think the American people sent a message that they want us to work together. I've always done that. I know I got criticized for it when I ran. I said I was running for 3 reasons. 1, to restore the soul of America. 2, to build this economy from the middle out and the bottom up. And thirdly, to unite the country. Regardless of what the final tally showed, I'm prepared to work with Republicans. But the American people have made it clear. They expect Republicans to work with me as well. And folks, I'll always be open to any good ideas, whether it's Democrat or Republican, to move the country forward. But I've also made it really clear that if Republicans try to repeal the power we just gave Medicare to reduce prescription drug costs, I will veto it and let it happen. If Republicans try to walk away from the historic commitment we just made to deal with the climate crisis, I will not let that happen. If Republicans try to cut Social Security and Medicare, I will not let that happen. And if they try to cut taxes for the super wealthy again, the biggest corporations like they did in the last administration, I will not let that happen either. Look, now as we look at tax cuts, we should be looking at tax cuts for working people and middle-class people. And I'm going to keep the commitment we both made that no one making less than $400,000 a year will ever see a penny in their taxes go up as long as we are in power. And folks, and I love the Republicans talking about big spending Democrats. We're going to keep working to keep the federal deficit low. We cut the deficit in 2 years by $1.7 trillion, more than ever in all of American history. Oh, I don't want to hear from Republicans calling Democrats big spenders. We're the ones bringing down the deficit. They're the ones that blew it up over 4 years. And one more thing. If Republicans pass, and I don't think they can do it now, a national ban to ban abortion, I will veto it. It's simple. We need to codify Roe v. Wade as the law of the land. And look, let me close with this. You've all heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. I, honest to God, have never been more optimistic about America's future than today. And I'm optimistic for a number of reasons. We're better situated than any nation in the world, to lead the world. We're better positioned than any nation in the world in terms of our economic growth and possibilities. And I'm optimistic because of the young people of this nation. You've heard me say it time and again, and I meant it. Your generation represents the best educated, the most talented, the least prejudiced generation in the history of the United States of America. I wasn't trying to be nice. I was just stating the facts. Just stating the facts. In 2020, many of you voted for your first time, and you volunteered in the first election. Well, look at what you did. When you exercised your power to vote, you elected Kamala Harris, the first woman vice president in American history. And you helped me keep my commitment that I would appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court, Justice Jackson. And guess what? She's probably the smartest person on the Supreme Court. And because of your vote this year, we're going to keep building the foundation we laid in the first 2 years. You proved once again on Tuesday that our democracy, the power in the hands of the people. For real, we the people, it really is truly in our hands. We set the course for the nation's future. We just have to remember who in God's name we are. And I hope if nothing else happens, you remember this. There's not a damn thing, I really mean it from the bottom of my heart, not a damn thing we can't do if we do it together. We are the United States of America, and you made it better. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Go get them. We got a lot of work to do. Thank you, thank you.